74. But it might be a different edition. So just look in the back and you'll see where it is. Oh, we have something here. This song is entitled Saparshada Bhagavad Viraha Janita Vilak. Means lamentation due to separation from the Lord and his associates. Jayanilo Premadana Karuna Prachu Karuna translation is as follows. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivasa Acharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? And where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta Goswami? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into a fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Hare Krishna. So Narottam, just briefly, I don't know too much about Lokannath Goswami, but Narottam Das Thakur, I believe, was his only disciple. His only disciple. And there's a story I heard in the Braj that Lokannath Goswami, of course, was living in Vrindavan, and he didn't want to accept any disciples. People were approaching him, and he would say, "No, I don't want anyone to serve me." This is a great quality. And there are others like him who are the guru of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. He completely refused. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the father of Bhaktisiddhanta, told him, "You must go and take initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji." He was a friend and contemporary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He used to come and hear Bhaktivinoda Thakur speak. But he was Babaji, and he didn't want followers. So Bhaktisiddhanta approached him and several times, and he kept refusing, saying no. Bhaktisiddhanta went home and told his father, "He won't accept me." And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just to impress his son, Bhaktisiddhanta, he said, "You must get initiation from him, otherwise you can't even live in my house." So he thought about it, and eventually he met him. The story is that he met him on a bridge crossing the Ganga, and he said, "If you don't accept me, then I might as well take my life. I'll jump into the Ganga and drown." And he meant it, and Gaur saw he's very serious, so he accepted him. So Prabhupada said, although he only had one disciple, look at the caliber of that disciple. Bhaktisiddhanta had thousands of disciples. So the same thing here with Lokannath Goswami. He refused. "I don't want anybody to serve me." But by the persistence, the determination of Narottam Das Thakur, he finally accepted him. It's a wonderful story. And then Narottam Das Thakur, he went on to have thousands of disciples. But it doesn't mean the one who has lots of disciples is greater than the one who only had one. So here Narottam Das Thakur, he's expressing in this song the separation he feels from even the previous acharyas. He missed Narottam Das Thakur missed Lord Chaitanya by a few years. And he was always thinking, I was born too late. It's like sometimes devotees say, I missed Srila Prabhupada. But the disciplic succession continues, and one can take shelter. I knew one boy, he was from my country, from Trinidad. And we both saw Srila Prabhupada at the same time in New York. And afterwards we spoke, and he wanted to know what I feel, what I think about Prabhupada afterwards. And I said, I use an expression that we used to use back then. I said, he's the real deal. We used to talk like that. I said, he's the real deal. He said, I think so too. So I said, so there's only one thing to do. We must go and surrender. He said, okay. And so we had an agreement. We're both going to go and join the temple together. And we picked a date. But the day came and he never showed up. He never showed up. He got cold feet. You know this expression, cold feet? He became like doubtful or something. But I went and I joined, and eventually I got accepted by Prabhupada, received initiation. And I didn't see that devotee from my country for 20 years. 20 years. When he finally showed up, at that time I was president of a temple in Laguna Beach. One day he walked in the door and I was so surprised. I said, where have you been? What happened? I thought we were going to join and surrender to Prabhupada together. He says, I know. I went and I joined the service. I said, you joined the service? What service? Yeah, I joined the army. I said, I joined the service too. He says, you are so fortunate. I missed the opportunity. I said, you did. I mean, Prabhupada was gone, I said, but you can still take shelter, one of Prabhupada's disciples. So then he left and I didn't see him for many years again. Yeah. Almost another 20 years, like maybe 15 years. And I went back to Trinidad and he, lo and behold, he was coming to the temple. And he wasn't initiated yet. So much time passed. And I said, when are you going to surrender? What are you holding on to? Anyway, he eventually surrendered to the The spiritual master was Guru Prasad Swami. He was our GBC in Trinidad. So he was just so hesitating, but he's doing fine now. He's happy. He comes to the temple every day, cleans the temple, sweeps and mops it. And they have a big temple room in Trinidad. Temple room is like 4 times the size of this. And he just volunteered to come and sweep and mop the temple every day. He was given the name Sadananda. Anyway, so Narottam laments that I missed Lord Chaitanya. He came and he said, where did the great dancer, where did he go? And then all of his associates. He was able to meet up with some of them. Some of them were still alive, but most of them had gone back to Nitya Leela. So, but he laments being unable to obtain Lord Chaitanya and those his associates, his devotees. It was a big thing because those associates of Lord Chaitanya, they were all Nitya Siddhas, eternally perfect persons. They came down from the spiritual world to assist and participate in Lord Chaitanya's pastime. So you can imagine having that many, pure devotees walking around. It was unusual time, special time. In another one of his songs, he sings, Gorangira Sangi Gani Nitya Siddha Karimani. The associates of Lord Chaitanya, they were all Nitya Siddhas, perfect. So he, of course, realized it. What an opportunity I missed. But then when he met Lokannath Goswami, he was determined to get shelter there. So, anyway, I had a book, but I think the last time I was here in France, I had this book, a big book. It contains little information about the associates of Lord Chaitanya. It was put out by one of the acharyas in one of the Gaudiya Math temples, Vallabhacharya. Very nice book. And when I was in Trinidad as a president, every time there was a disappearance day of one of, we hear sometimes, or you look on the calendar, appearance or disappearance of these personalities, and most devotees don't know who they were. But this book was very helpful. You could, I would bring it out and we could hear a little something about these personalities. But I left it, and I was here 2 years ago, and I left it. And, I didn't want to take it with me to India. And when I come back, it was gone. But sometime I'll try to get another copy. So we're going to read from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita today. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So we are going to read from Madhya Lila, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is volume 8. And this chapter 20, is entitled Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs Sanatana Goswami in the science of the absolute truth. The following is a summary study of this chapter given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. When Srila Sanatana Goswami was imprisoned by the Nawab Hussain Shah, both him and Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, were employed, they were forced to be employed to work for the Muslim government of Bengal, Nawab Hussain Shah. He had heard their good qualities and he wanted them to be in his cabinet. He says, I want you all to be my ministers, help me in my government, and it'll be worth your while. But they came from Brahmin families. They didn't want to work for this Muslim guy. They says, thank you, we appreciate your offer, but no thanks. And the Nawab said, I want you. If you don't accept my offer, I will terrorize the Hindus. I will persecute them. I'll make their lives miserable, hellish. And he could do it because they were ruling. The Muslims had actually occupied India for 800 years. And some of the leaders, some of the Muslim rulers were just the worst. One fellow named Aurangzeb, his only business was to go and desecrate Hindu temples. You know? But not all were that bad. There were some that had respect and allowed the Hindus to continue their worship. So this Nawab, he wanted Sanatan and Rupa to come and work for him. And he told them, if you don't, I'll make life hellish for them, for the Hindu people in his jurisdiction. So they didn't want that to happen, so they agreed and they accepted employment. He even gave them Muslim names. He changed their names. He called them Dabir Kash and Sakar Malik. So the word spread. These two very intelligent Brahmin men had joined and working for the Muslim. So the Hindu community, the Hindu rulers, rejected them, Rupa and Sanatan, and they were ostracized. Like they were banned. You can't from coming to the temple. They didn't know that the only reason they were doing that was to save them from torture. But they were so intelligent, they could speak 4 or 5 languages. And everyone knew their glories, their qualities. But they were working for the Muslim ruler, they were considered fallen and outcasts. But they approached the Nawab asking they wanted to leave the government to go and pursue spiritual life. They wanted to go join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He refused. But Rupa Goswami, he left anyway. And he left gold coins. Prabhupada said that Rupa Goswami, together with, they had a boat full, like a fishing boat full of gold coins. the Nawab paid them well, and they lived in mansions because they were like the chief ministers of the ruler. So after Rupa Goswami left to go and join Mahaprabhu, he wrote Sanatan Goswami. So Sanatan received news from Rupa Goswami that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to Mathura. Sanatan Goswami thereafter, he satisfied the superintendent of the jail by sweet solicitations and bribery. Because what happened was, I'm just giving you the background. Sanatan Goswami, he also wanted to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he knew that the Nawab had his men watching to make sure that he doesn't leave. So he decided to stay home and not go to work. He would send messages saying, I'm sick. You know, in the West we say, take a sick leave. So he's not showing up for his duties. And the Nawab had been out touring the country. And when he came back, he asked, where is Sanatan? And the others told him, he's sick. He's sick? What does he have? You don't know, he's been sick for a long time. So the Nawab, he suspected something's not right. So he paid a visit unannounced to Sanatan Goswami, and he found him, he wasn't sick at all. He was sitting surrounded by brahmanas reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. That's how he was spending his time. So the Nawab arrested him and put him in jail. He could have killed him, but he didn't want to, because he had some appreciation of Sanatan, but he put him in jail. So he wanted to get out and go and join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he bribed the jail keeper. It says, after giving the jail keeper 7,000 gold coins, Sanatan Goswami was released. He then crossed the Ganges and fled. One of his servants, Ishan, followed him carrying 8 gold coins. Sanatan Goswami and his servant spent the night in a small hotel on the way to Benares. The hotel owner knew that Sanatan Goswami and his servant were carrying 8 gold coins. He had an astrologer who told him this. And the hotel owner decided he's going to kill them that night and take the gold coins. So, making plans, the hotel owner received Sanatan and his servant as honorable guests. He was going out of his way to treat them nicely, giving them vegetables and things to cook, rice. What he was doing was so out of the ordinary that Sanatan, being smart, after all he was minister of the government, he could understand this is something odd here. The servant Ishan said, so Sanatan told his servant this man, he doesn't know us. He doesn't know me. And he's being so nice. And Ishan said, yes, he's so nice. Isn't that wonderful? But Sanatan says, no, it's not. Why would he do that? So Sanatan could figure out there's something going on. So he approached this jailer and says, look, I have these gold coins. First he asked his servant, did you bring any gold coins with you? I told you wasn't to bring any. He said, and Ishan, the servant, he lied. He told Sanatan, yes, I only brought 7 coins, but actually he brought 8. So Sanatan said, give me those 7 gold coins. And he went to the hotel owner and he said, look, I have these coins. I want to give it to you. You've been so nice to us. And Sanatan explained, I'm on the run. I left the Nawab, the Muslim ruler, and they'll be looking for me. I need to cross the mountains. Help me out. So the hotel owner said, I knew you had gold coins. Actually, I was told that you have 8. He said, no, I only have 7. He said, I knew you had these gold coins and I was planning to kill you tonight and take them. But you're a very intelligent man, so I won't kill you. I'll help you cross the mountain. So he put four men to escort Sanatan over the mountain. But when they left, Sanatan turned to his servant. He said, why did you lie to me? So anyway, keep that 1 gold coin and go back. You almost got me killed. So he went,
It would mean that 7,000 golden coins to bribe the soldier from the prison was a huge amount of money.
Yeah, back then.
Because if you can get killed for 8,
yeah, you can imagine how much that was.
Speak of 7,000.
As Prabhupada said, he had a boat full of gold coins. In those days, it was not paper money like today. No euros, no rupees. People had gold. The standard was so different. So, and he still had some money. He left it with someone. But Ishan, and he told Ishan he was going to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wasn't taking anything with him. But Ishan took 8. And for that, they almost got killed. Because the hotel owner, as soon as they came, the astrologer, this guy had some ability. He could tell. And he went and he told the innkeeper, the hotel owner, these 2 guests here, they're carrying gold coins. They have 8. He knew all of this without even talking to Sanatan. So
they were like nowadays billionaire.
Yeah. Billionaire. So they had so much, and they were prepared to give it up and to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I used to tell the devotees, they had something, they had so much money. And Srinivasa Acharya, there's one song, Praise to the 6 Goswamis. He glorifies them, how there's one verse he says, they just walked away from it all. position, money, everything to surrender. And they became mendicants. And they weren't lamenting. They give it up as if it was nothing. And today, if we have just a little something, we're hesitating. We hold back to come and surrender. Like I was telling you the story of this friend of mine from Trinidad. He went and joined the army. I said, one of the things he told me is, he says, I was worried about my future. I wanted some security. I said, what security is there in this material world? You know, I quit my job. I had a good job, but what we got coming to surrender Prabhupada, that was priceless. It was matchless. Like, the first temple was a storefront. It was called Matchless Gifts. It was just fitting, because when Prabhupada took it over, he had the real matchless gifts. Couldn't put a price on it. So these Goswamis, they walked away from all the aristocracy. They were aristocrats and money and everything, and they became mendicants. And they actually got the real wealth of Krishna consciousness, Krishna Prem. So, after they left the hotel, on the way, Sanatana Goswami met his brother-in-law, Srikanta, at Hajipura, and Srikanta helped him after he heard all about Sanatana's troubles. Finally, Sanatana Goswami arrived at Varanasi, and he stood before the door of Chandrasekhar. You were there? Chandrasekhar Acharya. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there when Sanatana arrived. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called him in and ordered him to go and get clean, change his dress so he could look like a gentleman. Because he traveled through he didn't take the road, the normal road, because he knew our men would be looking for him. So he went through the forest, through the jungles. By the time he got there, I don't know how long it took him. By foot, there was no trains or buses or anything. You have to walk. When you think about it, people in Mayapur, Navadvip, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and he went to Puri, every year they would walk. They'd make a pilgrimage to Jagannath Puri. I heard it would take them like a month of walking to get there. And they would celebrate Rath Yatra with Mahaprabhu and then walk back. They were doing this every year. So, because they knew how valuable this opportunity was. It was something. I remember when Prabhupada was still with us, he was traveling around the world. I think he went around about 10 times, visiting all the temples. And he would only stay a few days. So he came to New York. I was in New York 3-4 days, and then he's gone. And it'll be a year. A year would pass before we get to see him again. And then I moved to Los Angeles, the same thing. He'd come just for a few days, and then he's gone. But I remember devotees, when Prabhupada was coming and the word got out, we didn't have internet, nobody had cell phones or anything, but the word got out that Prabhupada's coming. Everybody, devotees from different states, far away, they would come and camp out. They'd bring this, sleeping bags and tents, and camp on the grounds, just to be able to hear Prabhupada speak for a few days, and then they would go back because they knew this is most valuable. They just drop whatever they were doing and come. So that's how it was with the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Bengal. They would go there. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told Sanatan to go and get cleaned up. Sanatan used an old cloth of Tapan Mishra. Tapan Mishra was another devotee him and Chandrasekhar was sent to Varanasi by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before he went there himself. He had them go and stay there and do Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan. But that place Varanasi was a stronghold for the Mayavadis. There was one Mayavadi guru named Prakashananda Saraswati. He had 10,000 sannyas disciples in that city. So the Mayavadis were all there. But Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra, when they went, they couldn't understand. Why did Mahaprabhu want us to come to this place? It's only Mayavadis. And Mayavadis, Mahaprabhu taught, they're the worst offenders. But he's sending them there and they're surrounded by Mayavadis. But Mahaprabhu had a plan. He was going to come there and convert all those Mayavad sannyasis. So he's there now, and Sanatana Goswami came. Later on, Sanatan exchanged his valuable blanket for a torn quilt. And at that time, Mahaprabhu was very pleased with him. When he showed up, he had a valuable, chadar, a quilt, to keep himself warm. But he thought, I'm coming here to renounce, to live simple with Mahaprabhu. What am I doing with this rich thing? So he went to the river and he asked a man who had a real old, tattered chadar. He said, let's exchange. So give me that. And the man said, really? You can have it. So Sanatan gave him his expensive chadar and he took the old thing. And Mahaprabhu noticed that. Prabhupada says here, he was very happy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with him. And then Sanatana Goswami received knowledge from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. At first, they discussed the constitutional position of the living entities, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Sanatana Goswami how the living entity is one of the Lord's energies. After this, the Lord explained the way of devotional service, and while discussing the absolute truth, Sri Krishna the Lord analyzed what is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, as well as the expansions of the Lord, known as Swayam, Rupa, Tadekatma, and Avesh. The Lord then described the many forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also described the incarnations of God within the material world, incarnations such as the Purusha avatars, Manvantar avatars, Guna avatars, and Shakyavesh avatars. So, in this volume, all these things are the teachings of what Mahaprabhu taught Sanatana Goswami. Krishnadas Kaviraj gives us all of that. The Lord also discussed the divisions of Krishna's different ages, such as his Balya, like baby, Poganda, a child, and also the different pastimes of the different ages. He explained how Krishna attained his permanent form when he became a youth, when he reached youth, like a teenager. That's his permanent form. He never aged beyond that. In this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained and described everything to Sanatana Goswami. So that was the summary of this chapter. Now we shall read some of it. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has unlimited wonderful opulences. By his mercy, even a person born as the lowest of men can spread the science of devotional service. All glories to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. While Sanatana Goswami was imprisoned in Bengal, he received a letter from Rupa Goswami. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur informs us that this letter from Rupa Goswami to Sanatana Goswami is mentioned in one book, Udbhata Chandrika. Srila Rupa Goswami wrote a note to Sanatana Goswami from Bakla. And in this note, he indicated that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was coming to Mathura. He told Sanatana Goswami, make your mind steady by thinking that this universe is not eternal. When Sanatana Goswami received this note from Rupa Goswami, he was very pleased. He went to the jail superintendent. So by this time he was in prison. And the jail superintendent was a meat eater. So Sanatan spoke to him. He told the Mohammedan jail keeper, he said, my dear sir, you are such a saintly person. He's flattering him. And you are so fortunate. You have full knowledge of the revealed scriptures, such as the Quran. And it is said in the Quran, if one releases a conditioned soul or an imprisoned person, according to religious principles, he himself will be released from material bondage. So he's purport by Prabhupada. It appears from this statement by Sanatan Sanatan was formerly a minister for the Nawab, and he was speaking to the superintendent. He was trying to cheat him, really. The jail superintendent, he only had an ordinary education, practically no education. So he was certainly not very advanced in spiritual knowledge. But Sanatan is praising him like that. However, just to satisfy him, Sanatana Goswami praised him as a very learned scholar of the scriptures. And the jailkeeper, he also thought that he was a learned scholar. By the flattery was working. Tell somebody, you are so wise, you are such a great devotee. They may think, yes, I know. You've recognized me. So even though he wasn't anything like that, Sanatana Goswami was correctly explaining the effects of spiritual activity. And the jailkeeper connected his statement with his release from jail. He was saying, it is said in the scriptures, if you free somebody, you will become free. So there are innumerable conditioned souls rotting in the material world, imprisoned by Maya, under the spell of sense gratification. The living entity is so entranced by the spell of Maya that in conditional life, even a pig feels satisfied. And he's living by eating stool. There are two kinds of covering powers exhibited by Maya. One is called prakshepatmika, and the other is called avaranatmika. Two potencies of Maya. One is thrown into a body, a position, and then covered. And in that condition, he thinks everything's all right. Even a pig, such an abominable life, he's completely happy and satisfied eating stool. So when one is determined to get out of material bondage, the prakshepatmika Shakti impels one to remain in conditioned life, fully satisfied with sense gratification. And due to the other potency, avaranatmika, the conditioned soul feels satisfied even if he is rotting in the body of a pig or a worm in stool. To release the conditioned soul from material bondage is a very difficult job. Because the spell of Maya is so strong. Even when the Supreme Lord Himself descends to deliver the conditioned souls, asking them to surrender unto Him, they do not agree to the Lord's proposals. Maya is so strong. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami said, somehow or other, if one helps another person get released from the bondage of Maya, or he is certainly recognized immediately by the Supreme Lord. So the greatest service one can render to the Lord is to try to infuse devotional service into the heart of a conditioned soul. That's why Prabhupada was pushing to preach, to go out and preach. Because if you help somebody, you give somebody, you help somebody to take up Krishna consciousness, your Krishna consciousness will increase. It's a difficult job because they don't want to. They're satisfied with their position and their pay. They don't want to. So if one can somehow convince somebody, and Prabhupada made it easy, if you can convince them to take a book, and then when they read and they hear from him, their lives will be changed, transformed. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said that a Vaishnava is recognized by his preaching work, namely by convincing the conditioned souls about his eternal position. It is the living entity's eternal position to serve the Lord, and therefore to help one get released from material bondage is to awaken them to the dormant understanding that he is the eternal servant of Krishna. Jiver Swarupoi Krishner Nityadas. This will be explained further by the Lord himself to Sanatana Goswami. But just see how wise Sanatana was. He hadn't met Lord Chaitanya yet, but he knew this. So he was using it to get released from jail. You know? Sanatana said, previously I had done so much for you before I was arrested. While I was the minister, I did a lot of things for you. He's talking to the jailer. Now I'm in difficulty. You can return the goodwill by releasing me. In this way, Sanatana Goswami convinced the jail keeper, who replied, my dear sir, I am willing to release you, but I am afraid of the government. I'm afraid of the Nawab. If I release you and he finds out, he'll cut my head off. Sanatana replied, look, there is no danger for you, because the Nawab has gone to the south. When he returns, you just tell him that I went to pass stool near the bank of the river Ganges, and that as soon as I saw the Ganges, I jumped in, and because I was shackled, I drowned. You can tell him that you looked for me for a long time, but you couldn't find any trace of me. I was carried away by the waves of the Ganges. So there's no reason to be afraid, because I will not remain in this country. I'll become a mendicant and I will go to the holy city of Mecca. Now he's also lying again. He's telling, because this guy's a Muslim. Remember, Sanatana had a Muslim name when he started to work for the Nawab. So, and he was rejected by the Hindus, so he was living like a Muslim. So he's telling the guy, look, if you let me go, I'm going to go to Mecca, which is the holy place for all Muslims. So Sanatana could see that the mind of this meat eater was still not satisfied. So he then offered him 7,000 gold coins. When the meat eater saw the gold, he was attracted. He said, okay. Yeah. And that night, he cut Sanatana's shackles and he let him cross the Ganga. In this way, Sanatana Goswami was released However, he didn't walk along the normal path. Walking day and night, he arrived in the hilly area known as Patada. I think we've used up all the time. But this is such a wonderful pastime. So we'll stop there and continue next week, Saturday. Every Saturday we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Apparently, there's a good connection between Tapan Mishra, Chandrasekhar, and Sanatana Goswami because three samadhi are just a little down the Prasad Lila temple on top of Vrindavan.
Yeah.
You have the big Sanatana Goswami
Madan Mohan temple.
and just close there are Tapan Mishras and Chandrasekhars.
Uh-huh.
But in Varanasi, I was told by the ISKCON devotees there that they still have a trace of the house of Tapan Mishra, but the house where Chandrasekhar lived
Is gone.
But at least Tapan Mishra, they have the.
They still have some things.
In Varanasi. Really.
Yeah, some things remain, and something in the passing of time, everything is destroyed.
What astonishes me also a lot is the whole of the assembly of sannyasi were converted to Vaishnavism at this time, but there is no remnants of that.
Well, after 500 years, a lot changes.
Everything
Yeah.
changed until Varanasi is a place for Mayavadi and for people to die.
Yeah.
Great place to preach, though.
But to preach to the Mayavadis, you have to be expert, because they, especially the sannyasis, they study Vedanta Sutra, and they know it inside out, but it's all Shankara's interpretation.
Yeah.
But they're not easy, you know. You have to be expert to preach to somebody like that, because they know Shastra, they know the Vedanta Sutra, but it's just they know it with the impersonal twist. So it's not easy to convince them. Bhaktisiddhanta was able to convince a few Mayavad sannyasis.
Mahaprabhu chose to exhibit so much supernatural
Power, yeah.
with his effulgence to attract their attention and philosophy as well.
Yeah. Even actually, the first person Mahaprabhu converted in Jagannath Puri was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he was Mayavadi. Mahaprabhu converted him. Mahaprabhu was just a young sannyasi.
His brother converted. His brother converted him.
No, Mahaprabhu converted him.
But
Gopinathacharya was his brother-in-law. He was married. Yeah, his brother-in-law. He was married to Sarvabhauma's sister, and they used to have constant discussions. But he couldn't. He would never accept it. You know, it would just go back. So Gopinath would say something, and he knew the scriptures so well. But when Mahaprabhu came, Mahaprabhu was able to turn his head, and then he became
7 days.
Yes. Then he became a follower. He became so staunch that there's a nice little pastime. After he became converted, one day he came to Mahaprabhu and he said, He quoted one verse from Bhagavatam. Tatenu kampam shusamit. And the last line says, Mukti pade sadayabhak. And he said to Mahaprabhu, I don't like this word mukti. Now he used to be a Mayavad and they're all about mukti. And now he's saying, I don't like this word. I think I should change it. Mahaprabhu just laughed and see, look at how he's converted so much. Wholesale conversion. That Mahaprabhu said, look, you can't change the scriptures. But you could understand that word mukti in this way. Mukti pade means Krishna, another name of Krishna is Mukunda. He gives liberation. But he had turned so much that what he used to be all about, he couldn't stand to hear it anymore. So he became a good follower. And that was a big deal. Because at the time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the most learned logician, scholar in all of India. Everyone knew him. He was respected. And he was so influential. The king was his disciple, the king of Puri. And Mayavad sannyasis used to come to him to learn Vedanta. And then this young sannyasi from Bengal, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, converted him. The news spread out like wildfire all over India that the great Sarvabhauma was converted by this sannyasi from Bengal. Big.
Like Keshava Kashmiri
Yeah.
was renowned.
Yeah.
So many assets.
Yeah. Prabhupada said that generally Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his preaching to the common people was practically no preaching. It's just kirtan and prasadam. Hardly any philosophy. But when he met somebody like Sarvabhauma and Prakashananda, then he come out with all the philosophy. And Kaviraj Goswami has given all that philosophy in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's enough ammunition, really, to deal with anybody. Anybody. All right. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Whose is this?